We're today on Rooted with Moe Hemmings from the Atlanta Botanical Garden, and we are talking about gardening in containers in an urban environment. And you guys are doing an amazing job here. This is 5 Points Farm, right in the heart of downtown Atlanta, and it's a wonderful place for people to come stretch their gardening legs and also to learn a lot about gardening in general. And I want to talk about starting vegetables from seed.
Yeah.
It can seem like a bit of a daunting task. In many cases, it seems easier to just buy the plant, but you know, the plants oftentimes can be a bit pricey, and seeds actually, once you get the hang of it, they're quite easy, aren't they?
Yeah, they're so easy. When you're trying to do seeds, you want to do something where you're giving them the humidity that they need to germinate, making sure that they're not drowning, and that they have adequate light. And once you get seeding and get those little seedlings going, transplants those little seedlings all around, especially if it's something that you really enjoyed growing, sharing with friends, it's a really good way to go.
Let's talk through some of the basics of starting a plant from seeds. We've got our pack of zucchini, our pack of tomatoes, and of course our pack of onions. They're so easy. Onions are so easy. We've got to think about the size of the seed and how that plays into how we're going to use it or how we're going to plant it.
Right.
So what do we need to keep in mind, Mo?
I mean, what people tend to forget is you've got a whole packet of information.
That's right.
Right there.
It's like a book.
It's a book of all kinds of things.
Right.
And when you're at your garden center and you're looking at your seed packet, you want to look for things like what sun requirement, their eventual size. You want to know what their spacing needs, what are their watering requirements. These are all things that are literally in the palm of your hand when you're reading that seed packet. Once you've got that going, you can make your game plan. Now, what's part of this game plan? This game plan is figuring out how your spacing is going to go for your seeds. As a general rule of thumb, the smaller the seed, the higher up it should be in your soil. So for example, tomato seeds are really tiny, like very, very tiny, sprinkly. So those are seeds that I would just sprinkle on the top. I like to go just like salt, a pinch of tomato seeds. Once you've got them just sprinkled on top, you sprinkle just a little bit of soil on top of them, just enough to cover them. On the converse of that, you've got things like your watermelon seeds.
Right.
Your watermelon seeds are as big as a fingernail.
Large,
you know, they're pretty large. With those, you want a good rule of thumb is twice the height of the seed. So you want to push it further down so that you would theoretically be able to put 2 watermelon seeds on top of that 1 watermelon seed.
Gotcha, okay.
So that's kind of just a little rule of thumb to help you kind of remember. And of course, again, like I said, your seed packet has that information. So if you were looking for specific measurements, if you want to pull out that ruler for your planting depth, they give you that too. And I've noticed a lot of the newer seed packets even come with a ruler on the side, on the packet, so it helps you. I usually, when I'm starting my seeds, I like to start with moist soil.
Right.
That helps me to make sure that immediately my seeds have the water that they need, the moisture that they need to get to germinating. Some people like to use the dry seeding mix, something really like that is labeled seedling mix from your garden center. I like to use things like perlite and a little bit of peat moss. Again, I'm going to capture that moisture and make it readily available to my seedlings while still giving them air, because that's a very important part to getting them germinated.
Yeah, and in the early days, the worst thing that could happen with a seed is it starts to germinate and that little acrospire pops out and then it gets dry.
Yes.
It's the worst thing that could happen. And you also need to make sure that you're watering them very gently. When I'm starting my vegetables, I actually like to use an old school watering can because it's very gentle instead of something that's on the end of a hose.
Yeah.
And also I can allow the water to sit out to where the chlorine evaporates out of the water. It doesn't take very long for the chlorine to evaporate out of the water, maybe overnight. And just think of this as a very, very sensitive, it's like a little baby. It is.
Little baby. Which is one of the reasons why when I'm starting my seeds, I actually like to use a spray bottle.
Right.
As again, I can control the pressure, I can control how much water is going on it, and I start with that moist soil so that I don't have to immediately water in my seeds and they wash away or they get buried deeper than I really want them to, because they need that light as well. And just building on that and giving them, again, the 3 things that they need.
Right, and knowing what time of year to plant your seeds, which is very, very important. So if we want to grow, say broccoli or cabbage, well, that's a cool season crop, and so we're not going to grow that in Atlanta in August. It would not be happy.
It would
at all.
not like it, no.
Yeah, and so look at the seed pack, and it will tell you, basically these are the months where these perform the best. You want to start your seeds probably about a month to 3 weeks before then, and get them strong enough to where they can be moved into your container or into the garden. Now let's talk about dividing or basically separating out our little seedlings.
I like for them all to germinate, and then I
Right.
kind of go through and do something called thinning. Now the way I thin is I tend to kind of find the strongest one,
Sure.
and then I just cut the other ones nearby.
Okay.
I don't pull it out. The reason I don't pull it out is because I don't want to disrupt the seed's roots.
Right.
That
right.
root is getting established and it's healthy, but if you cut it at the very top, right at the soil line, it's gonna die back, and then the strongest one that I've selected will now be able to use, kind of like composting in a pot almost, use the decaying roots of the other seedlings to get some nutrients
Oh,
and
nice,
then
yeah.
pop right up and get stronger. So you gotta be mindful of those things, but it's a really good way of approaching thinning, especially if you aren't as mindful of planting each individual seed, a singular seed, into each pot or growing container that you're going to do.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, this is great, Mo. I want everyone to go forth and be bold and try seeds this season.
Of course, of course. Thank you.
Let's do it. Thanks, Mo.